Hey everyone, most of you watching aren't subscribed. If you haven't yet, please smash that subscribe button so that we can hit 1,000 subs together. Let's do this. I still can't shake how much this guy I met on Hinge messes with my head. It sounds like something out of a bad movie or a true crime podcast, but it really happened to me. And honestly, it was the kind of creepy that doesn't come with any dramatic music or flashing lights, just quiet, cold, and completely real. We matched on Hinge one evening, and from the start, he was exactly what you hope to find on a dating app. Charming, funny, thoughtful, the kind of guy who remembers the little details, like your favorite coffee order or what you said about your weekend plans 2 days ago. He was always quick to reply, never flaky, and honestly, a little too available. That should have been a warning sign. But when you've been burned before, it feels almost like a breath of fresh air to have someone so, present. We messaged every day for weeks. I started to get excited about him, something I hadn't felt in a long time. The conversations flowed easily. We shared funny stories, deep thoughts, and even some vulnerabilities. I felt like I was really getting to know him. At least, that's what I thought. Then, after about 3 weeks of texting, we agreed to meet in person. He picked the spot, a small, cozy cafe in this artsy neighborhood I barely knew. I got there early, feeling a little nervous, but mostly hopeful. I sat down, pulled out my phone to kill time, and waited. Minutes passed. 5, 10, no text, no call. I figured maybe he got stuck somewhere. I tried texting him, no reply. I called once, twice, nothing. The cafe slowly filled with other people, chatting and laughing. But I just sat there, getting more and more anxious. After about an hour of waiting, I gave up and went home. My mind was spinning. Maybe something had happened to him. Maybe his phone died. I tried calling and texting a few more times that night, but his number was dead. Disconnected. Just gone. I felt frozen. How could someone just disappear like that? One moment he was there in my phone, in my head, and the next he didn't exist. I scoured every social media platform I could think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. No sign of him. Nothing. I even asked friends if they'd heard of him, but no one knew who he was. It was like he was a ghost. My curiosity and growing fear got the best of me. I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I reverse image searched one of his photos from his Hinge profile. What came up was shocking. The photo wasn't his at all. It belonged to some random model from another country. Not just that one pic. Every photo he had sent me, every picture on his profile, was stolen from someone else's online portfolio or social media. My stomach dropped. The guy I'd been texting, laughing with, the guy I thought was real, he was a complete fabrication. Someone had created this fake identity and used someone else's face to lure me in. I went back through every conversation, every detail he'd shared, and suddenly the weird moments made sense. The vague answers about his job, the avoidance of FaceTime, the excuses why he couldn't meet earlier. It wasn't me being paranoid. He was hiding everything because he wasn't who he said he was. The thought that he might have been doing this 2 other people at the same time twisted my gut. How many others had fallen for the same mask? Was this just a lonely guy playing a sick game? Or was there something darker behind it? And what about all the personal things I had told him? My routines, my favorite places, my job schedule. Was he watching me? Gathering information? The idea made me want to run and hide. I tried reporting his profile to Hinge, but by the time I got around to it, the account was deleted. The number was blocked. The photos wiped from his profile, like he'd never existed in the app at all. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the absolute vanishing. The silence. The emptiness left behind. I felt like I'd been talking to a ghost. Someone who had only ever existed in pixels and words, but never in real life. I've thought about what kind of person would do that. Someone who builds this fake life with careful precision, spends weeks or months weaving stories and memories that don't exist, just to pull the rug out and disappear. The charm, the kindness, the attention, all just tools to trap you in. When I think about it now, I realize how easy it was to get caught up in the illusion. It was intoxicating, having someone there every day, interested, attentive. And maybe that's why it's so scary, because it was real, at least for me. The feelings, the hope, the trust, those were mine. But for him, it was just a mask, a role he played. I keep wondering who was really behind that screen. Was he lonely, dangerous, or just a kid with too much time and no empathy? I'll never know. What haunts me most is how close I came to meeting him, to walking into that cafe, sitting across from a complete stranger, wearing someone else's face. The thought makes my skin crawl. That whole experience taught me a hard lesson. Online charm can be a lie. And sometimes the person you think you're getting to know is just a ghost wearing a mask. And when that mask drops, you're left alone in the dark, trying to make sense of a story that was never real to begin with. I never thought I'd be the kind of person with a story like this. You know, the I dated someone who wasn't who they said they were kind of story. But here I am, sitting back and still trying to wrap my head around everything that happened with this girl I met on Hinge. Honestly, it's way weirder and creepier than anything I could have imagined. It all started pretty normally. We matched, chatted for a couple of weeks, and finally decided to meet up. She was definitely mysterious, but in a way that was intriguing, not off-putting. She had this cool, artsy vibe, always dressed like she stepped out of some indie film. When we talked, she was funny and quick-witted, but there was this quiet edge beneath it all that made you want to lean in and really listen. One of the first things I noticed was how little she talked about her family. Like I asked a few times, hoping to get a sense of where she was from, if she had siblings or close relatives. But she'd always deflect, saying things like they're not really in the picture, or my family's complicated. I thought maybe she had some difficult history, or just valued her privacy. It wasn't totally unusual. Everyone has their stuff, right? So I didn't press. She also never really talked about friends. When I asked, she said she had a few, but they don't live around here, or that she wasn't big on crowds. That felt genuine enough, though a little odd that she hadn't introduced me to anyone after a few months of dating. But I told myself that maybe she was just cautious about who she let in. People can be guarded, especially if they've been hurt before. We dated for a few months, mostly on weekends. Sometimes we'd grab drinks at a quiet bar, other times we'd just hang out at her apartment, watching old movies. She was cool, and even though she was private, I felt like we had a connection. But even then, something always felt just a little off, like there was a part of her I wasn't seeing. That feeling got stronger one night at a party I went to with some friends. Out of nowhere, someone I barely knew tugged me aside with this strange look on their face. It was like they'd just seen a ghost. They whispered her name, but it wasn't the name she used with me. It was a completely different one, a name I'd never heard before. I was stunned. My mind raced. Could it be a mistake? Was this some kind of joke? I didn't say anything that night. But afterward, I started paying attention. I noticed how she always made sure her phone was face down or locked when she was around me. If I looked at it quickly, she'd swipe the screen away or pull it out of sight. Sometimes she'd disappear for hours, no texts, no calls, then come back like nothing happened. When I asked, she'd shrug it off or say she needed time to herself. It was like she had two separate lives, and I was only getting to see one. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces started fitting together. I started digging, checking social media, searching for her name and the other name the guy at the party had mentioned. What I found felt like something out of a nightmare. She had a history online that looked like a trail of different identities, scattered across different cities, different names, different jobs, even different backstories. It wasn't like someone changing their name once in a while or moving for work. It was more like she erased herself completely every time she landed somewhere new and started fresh, with no one knowing who she really was. Then came the worst part. I found posts and comments from other guys she'd dated before. They all described the same pattern. She'd start out super charming, intense even, making them feel like they were the only person in the world. But then, after a while, she'd start asking for favors. Not straight up money, but things that gave her access, passwords, bank info, work accounts, that kind of stuff. Some of those guys ended up having their personal info stolen or their accounts hacked. One even said she vanished the day after he found out his credit card was maxed out with purchases he didn't recognize. It was like dating was a means to an end for her, a way to get close to people so she could take what she wanted, not for love or friendship, but for access. That realization hit me like a punch in the gut. I kept thinking about how close she'd gotten to me, how much I'd shared without hesitation. What if she'd been figuring me out, waiting for the right moment to make a move? I was lucky she hadn't asked me for anything yet, or maybe I just didn't realize it. What freaked me out most was how normal she seemed when we were together. The way she could make you feel like the only person who mattered in the world. But beneath that warmth, there was always something calculating, always watching, always hiding. It was like I was a character in some game she was playing one. She'd been playing for years. One night, I tried to confront her. I didn't accuse her outright. I just asked about the inconsistencies, the missing pieces. Her smile disappeared. She got cold, distant, like I'd hit a nerve. She wouldn't admit anything, but I could see the truth in her eyes. After that, she stopped returning my texts, my calls. Just gone, like she never existed. After she disappeared, I did a full sweep, changed all my passwords, froze my credit cards, checked my accounts for anything suspicious. I don't know if she actually took anything, but I wasn't willing to take the risk. It's terrifying how easily someone can slip into your life with a mask on, pretending to be someone they're not, while you're completely unaware. Looking back, I see the signs clearly now, the silence about her past, the secretive phone habits, the name mix-up at that party. But when you're caught up in someone's charm and the possibility of something real, it's easy to ignore the red flags. The part that sticks with me most is how easily she slipped between identities, cities, and people, like a ghost who's always one step ahead, never caught, never pinned down. I keep wondering who she really is, if she's out there now, building another fake life somewhere else. And honestly, I'm just glad I found out when I did, before it went any deeper. But I'll never forget how close I came to falling for someone who wasn't really there at all, just a mask, a story, a ghost. I never thought a simple visit to his apartment would make me question everything about the guy I was seeing. We had been dating a few weeks, texting all the time, going out, and honestly, I was starting to really like him. He seemed chill, a little messy, but in that creative type way. Not someone who cared too much about neatness, but definitely had his life together. So when he finally invited me over one night, I thought, cool, this is getting serious. His place was on the second floor of an old building downtown. It wasn't fancy or anything, kind of cramped, with paint peeling off the walls in some spots, but it had character. The couch was covered in old blankets and pillows, and there were a few half-empty beer bottles on the coffee table. You could tell someone lived there, just not someone who cleaned a lot. That kind of matched what I'd expected. We hung out, watched some random Netflix show, and talked for hours. Nothing felt off, just a normal night in. But then, a couple days later, something stuck in my mind. I remembered the toothbrush situation. When I was brushing my teeth before bed, I looked for another one besides his, just out of habit. But there was only one toothbrush in the holder. I thought maybe he was just super private about his stuff, or maybe his roommate used her own bathroom. But the more I thought about it, the more it bothered me. A few nights later, I noticed there was only one bed in the place, no extra blankets or pillows lying around that suggested someone else was crashing there regularly. And then the bathroom stuff hit me. No feminine products anywhere. Usually, if someone lives with a girl, you see those little signs of makeup, a hairbrush, a bottle of shampoo that's not the basic kind, something, but nothing. Just his toiletries. I wasn't the type to snoop, but my curiosity got the better of me. I casually brought up the roommate he'd told me about, the girl who supposedly shared the apartment. His face changed, not in a big way, but the energy shifted, and he got quiet, like the words caught in his throat, or he didn't want to say more. That was the first red flag, but I didn't push it. I figured maybe it was complicated or awkward. People break up and live weirdly for a bit. A week later, after a few more hangouts, I pieced it together. One night, while we were talking, I mentioned something about roommates again, and he just looked away and stayed silent for a long time. The way he avoided the subject didn't feel casual or normal. It was like he was holding back something big. So I did what any overthinking person would do. I checked his social media, hoping to find a clue. His Instagram was full of photos from months ago, him and some girl, happy looking, smiling, holding hands, vacation pictures, the whole deal. But there hadn't been a new photo of her in ages. Then I noticed it. No recent posts, tagged from their shared apartment, or any mention of her. It was like she vanished from his life overnight. I looked harder. On Facebook, there was a vague status from him a couple months back, saying something about figuring things out. Nothing specific. His dating profile still mentioned he had a roommate, but it felt outdated, like a ghost from his past he wasn't ready to let go of. That's when I realized she left him recently, and he never updated his story or told me the truth. More than that, he hadn't accepted it. I started paying attention to his place more whenever I went over. It got stranger. The apartment looked like no one else had been living there for a while. No new groceries, just his favorite snacks scattered everywhere. A pile of unopened mail sat on the kitchen counter. The bed was only made when he knew I was coming, but otherwise, it looked like no one else was there. One night, I noticed his phone buzzed with a message from a number saved as her name. He quickly hid the screen. I didn't ask what it said, but something about it felt like it wasn't just casual chat. More like lingering feelings he wasn't ready to close. It felt like I was dating a ghost of his past. Someone who was there one moment and suddenly gone, but he kept the space they occupied, frozen in time, unwilling to move on. It made me uncomfortable. Not because I'm nosy, but because I felt like I was stepping into a paused life, not a real present. He talked about her sometimes, not openly, but in a way that suggested he was stuck in that chapter, clinging to it even though she wasn't there. I tried to imagine what that must be like, to share your life with someone for so long. Then suddenly, they leave, and instead of clearing out, you just pretend it's all still the same. Like living in a snapshot that doesn't move forward. Eventually, I stopped going over. It felt wrong, like I was intruding on a space that belonged to someone else. I didn't want to be the person who made him finally face the truth, but I also didn't want to be caught up in something that wasn't real. It's weird how something so simple as a toothbrush, a bed, a few missing things can tell a whole story if you pay attention. I'm not even sure if he was ready to admit it to himself that she was gone. Maybe that's why he kept that place the way it was, like a shrine or a museum of what used to be. Now every time I think about that apartment, I feel a little sick. Not because of him, but because I saw how much pain can hide behind a messy living room and a single toothbrush. And how sometimes, People live with their past so loudly, it drowns out everything else. I never thought a couple of dates would turn into the worst 3 months of my life. It started pretty normal, like any other thing you do when you meet someone on Hinge. We matched, talked for a bit, went out a couple times, and things got physical. Nothing wild, just the kind of stuff you expect when things feel right. I thought she was cool, easy to be around. So when I decided I didn't want to keep seeing her, I tried to let her down as gently as I could. She said she understood, or at least, that's what she told me. I thought that was that, you know. Sometimes people just don't click, and you move on. But she didn't. The first sign that things weren't going to end cleanly was a call I got at work. It was from a blocked number. I ignored it, because blocked numbers are usually telemarketers or something annoying. But then the calls kept coming. Every few days, sometimes even twice a day. No voicemail, no message, just silence on the other end when I picked up. That alone would have been weird enough. But then things escalated. A few weeks after the calls started, I got an email from HR at my company. Apparently, someone was complaining about me, accusing me of unprofessional behavior, making the workplace uncomfortable for them. The thing is, I've always been careful about keeping work and personal life separate. I don't even date coworkers. So I was completely blindsided. When I asked HR for more details, all they had was an anonymous complaint. No name, no proof, just vague accusations that could have come from anyone. I was frustrated, confused, and honestly a bit scared. That's when I started noticing weird things happening around my business. I own a small cafe downtown, and it's a place I put a lot of heart into. One morning, I logged into Yelp to check reviews. Nothing out of the ordinary at first. But then I saw it, a 1-star review from a user with no other reviews, no profile picture, just a rant about how the owner was rude and unprofessional, and how the whole place was a nightmare. The thing was, none of it was true. I hadn't even been there that day. Over the next few weeks, more of these fake reviews appeared, all painting me as a terrible person, someone customers should avoid. I couldn't get them removed fast enough. The calls, the emails, the reviews, it all pointed to one person. I didn't want to believe it at first, but everything fit the timeline. I tried ignoring it, hoping she'd get the hint and stop, but it only got worse. One day, I walked into the cafe and found the door lock had been tampered with. It wasn't broken, but definitely messed with. Like someone wanted to scare me, or maybe get inside without permission. I called a locksmith and changed the locks. The next day, then there were the texts. They started showing up on my phone, sometimes late at night, from numbers I didn't recognize. Nothing threatening, just creepy little reminders that she was still watching. Messages about what I wore that day, places I went, even the name of the bar where I met a friend for drinks. I knew then she was following me. I didn't want to admit it, but it was obvious. At work, my coworkers started acting weird around me. I caught people whispering when I walked by, glancing at their phones. I knew some of them had probably seen those fake complaints or reviews. I tried explaining. But who wants to be the guy accused of being rude or unprofessional when the evidence is out there, even if it's fake? I thought about blocking her everywhere, but I wasn't sure if she had multiple accounts or was using burner phones. I even changed my number once, but she somehow found it again within a week. At that point, I stopped answering calls from unknown numbers entirely. The paranoia started creeping in. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart would race. Every shadow outside my window felt like her. I stopped going out at night, avoided my usual hangouts, even took different routes to work and back. I felt trapped in my own life. The worst part was how little control I had over it all. There was no clear line to cross, no single incident to call the cops about. Just a slow, steady campaign of harassment that wore me down piece by piece. I tried talking to friends, but most just told me to block her and move on, like it was that simple. After months of this, I finally filed a report with the police. They listened, took the evidence I had, the tracker app screenshots, the fake reviews, the anonymous emails, but said it was tricky, without direct threats or proof of physical stalking. They suggested I get a restraining order, but warned it might not stop her. So here I am, still dealing with it. Every day feels like a battle to reclaim my peace. I changed jobs recently, moved to a different part of the city, and even hired a security system for my cafe. But that doesn't erase the feeling that someone I trusted, someone I let into my life, can turn into this shadow that follows you everywhere. The thing is, it wasn't just about the dates or the breakup. It became about control, about power. And no matter how much I wanted to move on, she wasn't ready to let go. This isn't some dramatic horror movie moment where everything explodes or gets resolved in a day. It's a slow, sinking feeling that someone is constantly watching, waiting, and messing with your life from behind the scenes. And sometimes the scariest stories don't come with screams or threats, just silent calls, fake emails, and a life that feels less like your own every day. I should have known something was wrong the night I found that tiny tracker in my purse. But nothing about the weeks before felt like a horror story until it really was one. It all started so normally, swiping right, matching, chatting about music and favorite pizza joints. He seemed chill, funny, always up for grabbing a drink after work. I'd never planned to get serious, but somehow, I was letting him into my life more than I planned. The first few dates were nothing out of the ordinary. A messy taco truck lunch, a museum visit where I nearly knocked over a sculpture by accident, a rooftop bar with neon lights and pop music. Sometimes he'd ask to meet me at the bar near my apartment, and I thought it was sweet, like he was eager to see me. I figured he worked nearby. He never mentioned where exactly, just that it was in the neighborhood. I never pushed him on details. Then came the odd little things, like the night I went out with my roommate to celebrate her promotion. I posted a story of us in cute dresses, clinking glasses. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a text, "You look great in that dress." My stomach twisted. I hadn't told him I was going out, let alone what I was wearing. At first I laughed it off. Maybe he saw my story and remembered. But later that week, still nothing about plans with me, he sent another message. "Is that new jacket from last week?" Again, I hadn't mentioned it. I actually had considered switching off location sharing on my phone, but every time I opened settings, I'd chicken out. It felt paranoid. I didn't want to be that person. He happened to show up whenever I tried a new coffee shop, always claiming he was in the area. Once I bumped into him at the grocery store, standing behind me in the produce aisle. I froze when I heard him say hello, pretending to be surprised. The plot was starting to feel suspiciously like a bad movie. I felt watched, like every move was mapped out. But I couldn't prove anything, so I kept telling myself it was coincidence. I liked him. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. Our dates stayed pleasant enough. Sometimes I'd pick a trendy tap room downtown, and he'd breeze in 20 minutes before I arrived. I'd try to show up a little early, just to see if he was really there, but he always was. He never asked for keys or for me to share my address. He just showed up. When I mentioned scheduling conflicts with work or last-minute changes, he'd nod and act like he understood, then still find me later that night at a dive bar I dropped into with friends. I started telling fewer people where I was going, and even then, I hesitated to blame him. The breaking point came when I emptied my purse onto my bed, searching for a lost lip balm, and spotted a small metallic cylinder wedged into the seam. It looked like a tiny electronic pillow, about the size of a Tic Tac. Curiosity made me pry into the lining. Underneath, it was sewn in, wires tucked neatly so I'd never notice. My heart pounded as I realized it was a GPS tracker. Someone had been following me. I yanked it free, pressed a button, and watched the tiny blinking light flicker to life. I dropped it on the floor. My head spun. Every text compliment, every random meet, every coincidence now carried a different meaning. It wasn't affection. It wasn't fate. It was stalking. I spent the next hour retracing my steps. The coffee shops, bars, the grocery store, the taco truck. I pulled old screenshots and checked my phone's location history. But of course, I'd never thought to look for any of this. All that data was stored in the tracker itself. I threw it on my desk, breathing hard, hands shaking, realizing how easily he could have known where I was at any moment. I didn't sleep that night. I kept checking my purse, my wallet, my car. Every bag felt compromised. I didn't want to turn my apartment into a crime scene, but I did feel the need to tell someone. I called my sister first. She told me to go to the police. I hesitated. I wasn't sure I had enough evidence, or that they'd take me seriously, but I knew I had no choice. The next day, I took the device on a breathless ride to the local precinct. The detective half smiled when I showed him the gadget, like he'd seen a dozen just like it. He said it was a mini real-time tracker, likely paired with an app on someone's phone. The implication made my stomach lurch again. He logged it as evidence, took my statement, suggested I get an order of protection or change my locks. When I told him the guy's name and how we met, his face went quiet. Apparently, this wasn't his first report. Not with other women who had known him for months before discovering the same thing. The detective said, most of these guys never expected to get caught until someone found the tracker. They'd use it to surprise the woman, pretend they were just in the area, gaslight them into thinking it was harmless, until it wasn't. I left the station feeling numb. I texted him that I was done, but of course, he never replied. I knew he was watching my messages, even if he pretended not to. I packed up the rest of my things, moved out of my apartment that weekend. I told my roommate to keep my old lease address off tenant databases, just in case. I bought a new purse, swapped phone numbers, and reset every password I could remember. It's been a month now. I still check over my shoulder when I walk down the street. I delete my location history. I don't post stories anymore. I still have that tracker sealed in a Ziploc bag on my desk, in case the detective calls. Sometimes I pick it up and hold it, marveling at how small and innocuous it was, how easily it hid in the lining of my everyday life, and how close I came to never realizing I haven't matched with anyone new. Maybe I will someday, maybe I won't, but I know now how fast the line can vanish between a casual date and terror, and how a simple purse, a night out with friends, even a text saying you look cute, can all be part of someone's plan if you let them. I matched with this girl named Alia on Hinge back in March. I remember because it was the same week my car broke down and I was having one of those everything sucks kind of stretches. She was hands down the most attractive person I'd ever matched with. Like almost suspiciously attractive. But we talked, and she didn't seem fake or anything. She was actually kind of cool, artsy, sarcastic, had a weird sense of humor. Our conversations weren't that deep, but they were fun, and honestly, I was just surprised she kept responding. We went out for drinks the following weekend. She picked this divey little bar I'd never heard of, and it was chill. A little loud, but she said she liked places where people weren't too polished. I thought that was kind of a cool take. She wore this oversized green sweater and combat boots and ordered something called a pickleback, which I'd never tried before. The conversation was easy. Not super flirty, but not cold either, just kind of playful. She was way more comfortable in herself than most people I'd dated. Like she didn't care if there was silence or if I said something dumb. She just rolled with it. We hung out again the next week. She texted me, suggested a sandwich place downtown, Again, super casual. We walked around afterward, got gelato from this food truck parked near the art museum. At some point she took a selfie of the two of us. I didn't think much of it. I figured it was for her story, or whatever. People do that. She didn't post it, at least not anywhere I saw. She didn't even ask if it was okay, but I didn't care at the time. She had this way of making everything feel normal. The third date was a bit weirder. She wanted to meet at a bookstore cafe that looked straight out of Tumblr circa 2014. Edison bulbs, mismatched chairs, stacks of books everywhere. We talked for about an hour, but something felt slightly off. She seemed distracted, checking her phone a lot. She wasn't rude about it, but I remember thinking the vibe had shifted. Still, it wasn't bad, just different. When we said goodbye, she gave me this little half-hug, not awkward, just brief, and said she'd be in touch, and then I didn't hear from her for a few days. I figured maybe she lost interest, which sucked but wasn't the end of the world. I didn't overthink it. I still followed her on TikTok. She had mentioned she made videos, mostly fashion and sarcastic voiceovers. I hadn't really scrolled through them in detail before, but one night while I couldn't sleep, I opened the app and saw her name pop up at the top of my feed. She'd just posted. The video was one of those TikTok dating challenges, quick-cut clips of different guys over text. On dates, walking down sidewalks, sitting across from her at restaurants. The caption said something like, "Dating 5 guys in 5 weeks. Who's getting a second season?" The music was some viral trending audio. The comments were full of laughing emojis, and people saying, "Guy number 3 looks like he cries after he eats, and guy number 5 gives me IBS." And there I was. Guy #2. There was a clip of me sitting across from her at the sandwich shop, and another blurry video clearly taken on her phone when I was walking ahead of her near the art museum. One where I was talking and eating at the same time. One where I looked genuinely dumb, pointing at something on a menu like I'd just discovered the concept of food. I felt sick, like cold in my stomach. I had no idea she was filming any of it. None. I didn't consent to be in that video. I didn't know I was a piece of content. And it wasn't just the footage, it was how she framed everything. Each guy had a little description under him. Mine said, "Graphic tee guy. Sweet, but thinks," quoting Bo Burnham, "is a personality." People were roasting me in the comments. Dozens of them. About my shirt, my haircut. One person said I had the energy of a barista who tells you about the beans without you asking. I closed the app, then opened it again, scrolled through the comments for way too long, even though it felt like my face was burning. I didn't comment, didn't message her. What would I even say? She knew what she was doing. This wasn't some misunderstanding. This was a game, a whole challenge built around stringing guys along for content. She filmed me without my knowledge, ranked me, posted it online, and laughed about it. And the thing is, nothing about those dates felt fake when they were happening. That's what messed me up. She was present, engaging, even funny. She wasn't cold or bored or half checked out. She made me think she was just a little offbeat, someone who didn't take things too seriously. I didn't realize I was part of a video until after it had already been seen by thousands of people. The next day, I deleted Hinge again, unfollowed her everywhere. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly removed it all. I didn't want her to know I saw it. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing I was upset, but I also didn't want to risk being in another post. I had no clue what else she'd filmed. For all I know, there's footage of me trying to parallel park that she's saving for a sequel. Since then, I've seen more videos like that pop up, not just hers, but other people doing the same thing. Turning dating into a game. Content. Episodes. It's all a bit much. I'm not saying dating was ever easy, but I didn't expect to wake up one day and find myself being critiqued by strangers, like I was on a reality show I never signed up for. That's the part that stuck with me. I wasn't even heartbroken. I was embarrassed. Not just because of how I looked or what people said, but because I had no clue. I was just out there, trying to connect with someone, and the whole time I was just, a bit, a clip, background for a punchline I never got to hear. I was sitting on my couch, eating cold pad thai straight from the container, scrolling through Instagram, not even really paying attention. It had been a long day, and I just wanted something brainless to zone out to. I wasn't looking for drama, wasn't deep diving into anyone's account. I was literally just watching stories, liking dog videos, minding my own business. And then I saw him. It was a wedding photo, a tagged post on someone else's account, not his. It wasn't superposed or fancy, just a candid shot of a bride and groom walking out of a building, confetti in the air, people clapping. At first, I didn't even notice it was him. I just thought the photo looked nice and almost scrolled past it. But something about the guy's face pulled me back. I stared at it for a second, squinting, then zoomed in. My stomach immediately dropped. It was Alex. The same Alex I'd been dating for 3 months. The same guy who texted me good night after that wedding photo was taken. Same guy who made me pancakes 2 Sundays ago. Who met my friends. Who told me he was taking things slow because of how badly his last relationship ended. I just stared at the screen. I went to the profile of the person who posted it. Some cousin or family friend, I couldn't tell. There were more pictures, group shots, posed photos, reception candidates, and he was in all of them, front and center, wearing the same suit I'd complimented the week before, standing next to a woman in a lace wedding dress, smiling like he had absolutely nothing to hide. I sat there for a long time, not even sure what I was supposed to feel. Part of me thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe it was an old photo, a different Alex, who just happened to look exactly like the guy I'd been seeing. But no, I zoomed in again and again. Same face, same haircut, same little scar on his chin, from when he fell on a beer bottle in college, a story he'd told me on our 3rd date. It was him, no doubt. I started digging. His profile was private, so I couldn't see anything new there. But I searched the bride's name. It was tagged in one of the photos, and found her profile. Public bright, bubbly captions, beach selfies, baby shower pics. Yes, baby shower. Turns out, she was pregnant. 8 months, according to her post from a few weeks earlier. There was even a post with Alex holding her stomach, looking down like he was the proudest man alive. That's when everything stopped feeling like a weird accident and started feeling like I'd just gotten hit by a truck. I wasn't just some random fling he kept on the side. I was basically part of a double life. He had a whole other life happening in a different part of the city, with a woman he was about to have a child with. Everything started replaying in my head at once. The random nights he said he was too tired to come over. The weekends he had to visit his parents. The phone calls he'd take in the other room. The times I noticed his texts would suddenly stop after 9 p.m. and not start again until the next morning. It had all seemed normal, harmless even. He told me he was just busy, just needed space, just wanted to take things slow, and I believed him. I thought about the time he brought me coffee at work just because. Or when he texted me a photo of his dinner one night and said it didn't taste right without me. The small stuff that felt thoughtful back then suddenly felt manipulative and fake. Not because he didn't mean those things, maybe he did, but because they were all happening while he was building a family with someone else. What messed me up the most was how good he was at pretending. There were no slip-ups, no weird clues, no red flags that screamed married. He talked about the future, made plans with me, met my friends, asked about my family. He remembered the little things I said. He didn't act distracted or shady. I truly believed he was present. There was never any reason to think he was hiding something that big. I didn't text him. I didn't call. I just blocked him on everything. Phone, Instagram, Venmo, all of it. I didn't even want to hear his explanation, because there wasn't one that would have made any of it okay. You don't get to lie to someone for months and then try to explain it away. And I knew if I let him talk, I might start second-guessing myself. I'd start asking questions that didn't matter, trying to make sense of something that never made sense to begin with. I didn't message his wife either. I thought about it for hours. I stared at her profile, looked through her posts, saw pictures of their nursery being set up. I thought about sending her screenshots, telling her the truth. But at the end of the day, I didn't even know what my truth was anymore. I didn't know what he'd told her, what she knew, or what she didn't want to know. I just closed the app and left it alone. That night, I sat in bed staring at the ceiling for hours. Not because I missed him, I didn't. Not because I felt heartbroken, I didn't. Really. What I felt was confusion, like I'd been part of a movie I didn't know I was in. Like I'd been cast as a background character in someone else's real life. And none of it was real. A few days later, I deleted Hinge, again. And this time, I didn't re-download it. Not because I'm done dating or scared of love, or whatever, but because I don't want to scroll through profiles and wonder who else has a whole other life tucked behind a smile and a quote from The Office. And I don't want to end up someone's secret ever again. I wasn't even seriously trying to date when I matched with her. It was more like background noise. I'd go on Hinge every now and then when I was bored or couldn't sleep, swiping through people I'd probably never meet, reading prompts. That all kind of blurred together. But she stood out. Her name was Mira. Her profile had this kind of weird charm to it. She wasn't super polished or posed, no heavily filtered selfies or resort pics. Her photos were mostly film shots, kind of grainy, her painting something on a wall. One where she was wearing a jacket that looked like it came from a thrift store in the 90s, standing in front of a record shop with a cracked sidewalk. Her captions were short, kind of funny, kind of cryptic. I don't know. She seemed like someone you'd meet at a basement show or a pop-up gallery and talk to 4 hours without meaning to. We messaged for a few days. She was fast at replying, but never too much. Her vibe was always slightly mysterious, but I liked that. She was smart, funny, called me out on dumb things in a way that felt playful, not annoying. After a bit, we got drinks at this weird bar that looks like a laundromat on the outside. She showed up wearing an oversized blazer and had these paint smudges on her hands. She didn't explain them, and I didn't ask. It was actually a great night. She told stories like she'd lived 3 lives already, grew up in a bunch of different places, used to live in Berlin for a summer, tried to start a zine once, almost adopted a ferret, that kind of stuff. She was interesting without trying to be. I liked being around her. She had this energy, like she could turn a boring Tuesday into something worth remembering. So yeah, I kept seeing her. The first few weeks were normal. We'd hang out a couple nights a week, usually at my place. She always came over with a backpack and this beat-up denim jacket that smelled like citrus and incense. She'd play music I'd never heard of, made me weird snacks out of stuff I forgot I had in my kitchen, and sometimes painted in my living room at 2 a.m. while I watched TV. It was cool at first, then she just kind of stopped going home. It wasn't a conversation. There was no "can I crash here for a few days?" It was more like she stayed over one night, then the next, then 5 in a row, then 10. Suddenly there was a toothbrush in my bathroom that wasn't mine, a few shirts in my closet that I didn't recognize. My fridge had oat milk and random vegan stuff I definitely didn't buy. And every time I thought, okay, I'll ask her when she's heading out, something would come up. She'd be mid-story, or cooking, or napping, or in the shower, or waiting for me to pick a movie, and I'd let it slide. Again. Eventually, I did ask. Casually, Like, hey, do you need to go home and grab anything? That's when she told me she gave up her apartment. Just like that. Said the rent was insane. Her roommate sucked, and she wanted to be more fluid with where she was living. I just stared at her. She said it like it was a normal life choice. She didn't ask if it was okay. She said she wanted to be closer to me and that my place felt more like home anyway. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I genuinely didn't know how else to react. I asked her what she meant, like, logistically, where were her things? Where was her name registered? Did she still get mail? She kind of brushed it off, said she sold a bunch of her stuff, put the rest in storage, and forwarded her mail to a friend. I was still trying to process all of this while she was pulling my blanket over herself like we were just gonna go to sleep. It didn't stop there. She started redecorating. Not big things, just small, slow changes. A new rug appeared. My fridge was covered in magnets she brought from who knows where. She put her art on my walls, rearranged bookshelves, started organizing my bathroom cabinets like it was hers. At one point, I came home, and she had painted a section of my hallway teal. No warning, just it needed more color. I felt like I was losing control of my own apartment. I couldn't move without bumping into her stuff. Her clothes were everywhere. Her tote bags were draped over chairs. Her sketchbooks were on every surface. And the worst part, she acted like this was completely normal. Like we were just naturally blending our lives together. Even though we never had that conversation. Not once. I finally sat her down and told her we needed space. That things had moved too fast, and I needed to breathe. She didn't take it well. She started crying like immediately. Said I was heartless. That I clearly didn't care about her at all. That I let her make this huge leap, only to push her away. I told her I didn't let anything. She never asked. She said she had nowhere else to go. No apartment. No backup plan. That part hit me weird. Like, how do you give up your place without even asking the person you're dating if they're okay with that? How do you just decide someone else's apartment is your new home? I didn't have an answer for her. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. She wasn't yelling or breaking things or doing anything dramatic. She just sat there, quiet, on my couch, acting like I was throwing her out into the street. Eventually, she left. Not that night. It took a few more weird days, but she finally left. Said she'd figure something out. Didn't say where she was going. I packed up her stuff and left it by the door. She picked it up while I was at work. I didn't hear from her again after that, but she kept posting on Instagram. New places, new people, same tone. Still free-spirited, still making weird little sculptures out of trash and tagging it found beauty or whatever. She unfollowed me eventually. I didn't block her. I just watched from a distance like someone staring at a fire they barely managed to put out. And, yeah, I'm back on Hinge now. But I read every profile way more carefully. I don't care how artsy someone looks. I don't want to wake up one day and realize my life isn't mine anymore.